Let's return to the Cy Young Award example and see who would win under plurality with elimination. Um, so let's see. To start off, we need to eliminate the weakest candidate. One thing I'd like to remind you guys is technically some candidates may have no first place votes, and they would all be last place under straight plurality method. So looking at the Cy Young Award, there's quite a few pitchers here that didn't have any votes for first place. Like RS had no first place votes. Neither did TJ. And I think there's one more somewhere. But basically, I'm going to make sure to try to cross off everyone who doesn't have any first place votes because they can't win with plurality um, with 0 first place votes. And TJ and actually NH also. No, NH had first place votes. Um, it's late and I'm kind of tired, but I guess that was it. Um, oh, GK, sorry. GK did not have any first place votes either. So basically, all those people would be in last because they were first out the door, first to be eliminated. So GK, RS, and TJ. Next up, like again, under straight plurality, we want to start off by knowing how many first place votes does everyone have, which is, and we did this already when we looked at the board account example, but 3 people were tied with 10, PR, SM, and JE, and H had 4, and SM, no, sorry, NM had just 2. So next would be NM with only 2. And remember, be careful not to eliminate JE, because even though he's only got 1 and he's last in the column, due to the arrangement of the columns, he technically, you want to make sure you're adding them all up to know how many total first place votes do they have when you're making the elimination. So anyways, NM will be first. I'll go ahead and do the first elimination in blue. I'm trying to use different colors here so that we can kind of, if we had to go back and look, we would know, okay, what order did eliminate them in. And again, I'm going to try to cross them off everywhere. This technically you don't need to, but this is just my recommendation to make it easier. So they're going to get next to last place, which is I don't remember which place this should be because we got to count the candidates, but we'll figure it out after we figure out how many people are remaining. I believe there's 8 total, so this should be 5th place, I think, but whatever. And then, of course, when I'm eliminating a first place vote, I want to make sure that I'm shifting that to the next up. So basically, Joe Everyman is going to get those 2 votes. And another thing that you could do is when you're starting off with plurality, we could say, well, how did the rankings? And this is something I've recommend doing if you're having a hard time keeping track of things. And actually, I learned this trick from a student um, who used like a particular style of notes to keep track, and I thought it was very very nice. So I started doing it and teaching it too. But basically, NM had 2, NH had 4, JE, and SM. So basically, I could start by writing down what are my plurality totals, and that way I can kind of say, okay, NM is going to be eliminated, and then I could think about who's going to get those 2 votes. And in that case, it would go to Joe Everyman JE, and I can kind of keep track of, well, what's the updated tally as I'm going. So now actually, Joe Everyman would now be in the lead with 12 votes for Cy Young, whereas PR and SM have 10 and NH has 4. But I can now see, okay, who's the weak link next. And remember, I need to keep eliminating until someone has a majority. In this case, there are 36 total votes. So a majority of 36 is actually going to be the same as the last question, 19. Because remember, well, 36 is an even number, so if we take 50% of that, it's exactly 18. But a majority is never exactly half, it's always more. So 19 is going to be our majority, exactly the same as the last question. Um, anyways, we need to eliminate Norm Hole and H because Joe Everyman does not have 19 votes, does not have a majority. And I'll go ahead and do +1 here. I'm just so I can remind myself what is the majority in this problem. And so Norm NH is going to be eliminated next, and his vote will shift all the way down to PR. And that's why I X'd everyone else out, just because it's a little bit easier to say, okay, who's next up, who's actually still a legitimate choice. So those 4 votes will be shifted to PR, which will put PR at 14. Still not a majority, so I need to keep eliminating. And typically what you'll in the homework, what I've noticed is it will often eliminate all the way down to 2 candidates, but sometimes if the first candidate's already winning by a majority, you might not need to eliminate anyone at all. So it really just depends on the data in terms of how many people will we need to eliminate. But I've noticed with the homework, it's typically it goes all the way down to 2. But anyways, so now the new last place, I'll go ahead and note that over here, that NH is going to come in 4th place because they were eliminated 2nd. Now SM is going to be eliminated. And this is something where in class I would ask you guys, what do you think? Who's going to be eliminated next, just to see if you guys if this was making sense. But since we're online, you can always ask me, over email or in Zoom or whatever if you do have any questions or if something is not making sense. And I want to think about, okay, SM should be eliminated in those 2 positions, and those votes will be shifted to NH and PR. So NH is going to gain, oh no, NH was supposed to be gone. See, this was why I recommended that we cross off everyone that was gone. But in this case, SM's vote will go to JE plus 8 and JE plus 2. And at this point, that leaves JE with 22 votes. And actually, we've eliminated down to just 2 candidates. So by the time we get to 2, we should always have an outcome. We should know what's what. And so PR is going to take 2nd place. And Joe Everyman, JE, will win under plurality with elimination. So he would get the Sang Award, which I believe is consistent to the answer we got when we did it with a modified word account. And it's not necessarily going to get you the same answer. Every method could give you a different answer. It just really depends on the data. But it highlights another process of determining the outcome, which actually uses all of the information, but it's not just like a point system like word account. And each method has their strengths and weaknesses, which we'll kind of circle back to in the last section of chapter 1. So one last thing is one way that you can check to make sure you didn't mess it up, and actually notice that there's something that I didn't circle right here, is that SM had 2 votes going to PR, which I believe I left off now that I'm looking at it. Or actually, I believe I gave those 2 votes to JE on accident. Yeah, I did. So I think I made a mistake here. And it's very late. So another recommendation for you guys here is don't try to do math in the middle of the night or after a really long day. And yeah, because it's a little harder to think clearly when you're distracted by real life or whatever. But anyways, yeah, the total should come to 2016. But my point is, how do you check your answers? And that's exactly how I caught that mistake, is I went back and looked, and I made sure that I was looking at each column, and in every column somebody circled, and like basically making sure that all the votes did not, nobody's vote got left out. And also when I add these up, it should make the total, at the end, which is 36 votes. And if it's not, then something definitely happened. And that's how I caught the mistake, because I noticed that PR, I forgot to circle PR, and they actually had those 2 extra votes, but I didn't see it in my math. And that's why I recommend that you take notes like I'm doing. But you don't have to. Like when I first was teaching this section, I didn't actually keep these sorts of notes, but I think you'll find them helpful to keep track after all is said and done. Anyways, in the next video, I'll do another example of plurality with elimination method.